Los Angeles. Late at night. The city was quiet, but his mind was not. Bruce Lee sat alone in a small room, shoes still on jacket laid across a chair. Someone had just walked out. The door closed softly. No words were needed. In those years, the world saw him as unstoppable, strong, focused, in control. But moments like this never made the headlines. After closeness fades, what is left for a man who is always watched? When the body rests, but the mind keeps moving. During his rise, 3 women shared nights with him like this. No labels, no promises, only time shared briefly, then released. Each moment felt real. Each goodbye felt unfinished. Was intimacy a place where he could finally breathe? Or just another room he was never meant to stay in? By the early 70s, Bruce Lee was moving fast. Faster than his life could keep up with. Film sets during the day. Meetings at night. Flights that blurred one city into another. People talked to him like he was already a legend. They listened closely. They waited for him to finish a sentence before deciding what it meant. But when the rooms emptied, something else remained. Exhaustion. Not the kind that sleep fixes. The kind that comes from always being seen. During this time, women came into his life without drama. No big entrances. No chasing. Just presence. A conversation that lasted longer than planned. A shared laugh after a long shoot. 2 people sitting closer than before because the night felt safe. It wasn't about desire at first. It was about relief. With them, he didn't need to perform. He didn't need to teach. He didn't need to prove anything. He could pause. He could breathe. But fame changes the weight of closeness. When one person carries power, even silence feels different. A touch can mean more than intended. A night can feel heavier the next morning. Nothing was clearly defined. That was the problem. No one asked for commitment. No one asked to leave. And in that quiet space, feelings grew without permission. For Bruce, intimacy became a place without cameras, but also a place without rules. He never lied. He never promised what he couldn't give. Still, something shifted. Because when everything in your life moves forward, standing still with someone can feel like a decision. And decisions, even unspoken ones, always have a cost. These women didn't enter his life to change it. They entered it because the moment allowed it. What followed was not scandal. It was tension, unspoken, unresolved. And slowly, the thing meant to offer rest began to demand something back. There was one woman who knew him before the noise. Before the lines on his face came from travel. Before people waited for him to enter a room. With her, time felt slower. They talked without checking the hour. Silence did not feel heavy. It felt earned. After they were close, she never asked questions. She stayed a little while. Then she left without changing the air in the room. Bruce noticed that, with her, intimacy did not pull. It rested. But life moved on, and so did he. The second woman entered later, when his name already meant something. By then, privacy was fragile. Phones rang too often. Doors closed more carefully. She understood the rules without being told. No public moments. No visible attachments. Their time together lived in small spaces. Late hours. Lights kept low. After closeness, she waited for something. Not words. Recognition. Her eyes asked questions. She never spoke. Questions about tomorrow. About place. About meaning. Bruce felt it. And for the first time, silence did not feel kind. He would stand. Pick up his jacket. Avoid the question by leaving the room. He wasn't running. But he wasn't staying either. The third woman was different. She did not look at him like a star. She didn't soften her voice around him. She didn't treat his presence like a gift. Their closeness came without warning. No long build-up, no careful steps. Afterwards, she stayed seated. Didn't rush to leave. Didn't ask to be held. She asked something simple, almost careless. "Are you okay?" Bruce didn't answer right away. Because, for once, he wasn't sure. That question stayed with him longer than the night itself. 3 moments. 3 kinds of silence. One that felt safe. One that felt unfinished. One that felt exposed. None of these women asked to change his life. But each one reflected something back to him. The first showed him who he had been. The second showed him who he was becoming. The third showed him who he could not control. And that was the clash. Not between people, but between timing and truth. Bruce never pretended these moments meant nothing, but he also never allowed them to mean everything. He kept moving. Because movement had always been his answer. Yet each time a door closed behind someone else, the room felt slightly smaller. He began to notice how closeness followed the same pattern. It arrived quietly. It felt necessary. Then it asked for something, and he never stayed long enough to hear what that was. There were no arguments, no scenes worth remembering, just pauses that lasted too long, goodbyes that didn't sound final but were. In public, he remained focused, sharp, certain. In private, something shifted, because intimacy without direction creates weight, and weight, when ignored, does not disappear. It settles. By the end of that period, Bruce understood one thing clearly, not in words, in feeling. That closeness was no longer a place to rest. It had become another responsibility. And responsibility, when it comes too quietly, is easy to underestimate. There came a night when nothing was missing. No noise outside, no calls waiting, no one asking for his time. The city was open to him. Every door would have stayed unlocked. But Bruce did something different. He stayed in, not to work, not to train, just to sit. The room was quiet in a way he hadn't felt in years. No tension, no expectation. He realized something then, not suddenly, slowly, that every time he shared closeness, he gave a part of his stillness away. Not because anyone took it, because he offered it without thinking. These women hadn't asked for too much. They had only asked to exist in the same space as him, and somehow even that had become heavy. For the first time, he didn't answer a late knock, didn't return a look that invited more, didn't step into a moment just because it was there. It wasn't discipline, and it wasn't guilt. It was awareness. He saw how easily silence could turn into obligation, how comfort could quietly ask for a future, and he knew he couldn't carry that anymore. That night wasn't dramatic. No decision spoken out loud, no line drawn, just a man choosing not to fill the space. In that choice, something shifted, not in the world, in him. Years later, people would talk about his discipline, his focus, his control. They would never talk about the quiet nights, the ones without witnesses, the ones that didn't leave records. Those 3 women never became chapters in his public story. No photos, no quotes, no explanations. But they lived in the spaces between, in the way he learned when to step back, in the way he chose absence instead of closeness, in the way he protected silence like it mattered. He did not regret those moments. They were real. They mattered. But he understood something most people never do. That intimacy leaves traces. Even when it is gentle, even when no one asks for more, some connections are not meant to grow. They are meant to be felt, then released. Bruce Lee kept moving forward, as he always had, but he moved lighter, not because he had less, but because he knew what not to carry. And maybe that was the quiet truth of those years. That at the height of his power, what shaped him most were not the fights, not the fame, but the moments he chose to leave untouched. Moments that existed only once, and were never repeated. The room would go quiet again, and he would sit with that, alone.